Hello, I'm Alana Baxter, a singer with Choir of the Sound. Today, I have with me...
I'm Jeremy Matheis, and I serve as conductor and artistic director for Choir of the Sound.
I'm Joseph Pollard White. I'm music director of the Thalia Symphony.
All right, tell us about this piece.
The Armed Man.
The Armed Man. It's written by the Welsh composer Karl Jenkins. It was written, 2000, I think was what we decided, looked it up as the premiere. It uses both movements from the traditional Latin Mass and poetry and stuff from other sources. So there's an Islamic call to prayer, there's poetry by Rudyard Kipling, and some things from Hindu tradition and Japanese poetry, and most importantly, the song The Armed Man, or in French, L'Homme Armé, which refers to an armed man, a person with weapons. It was a very popular tune in the 14th century, possibly even earlier than that, and has been used in masses and things for hundreds of years. So Jenkins' take on it is following a long, long tradition.
So it's been a long 3 years. How did you two decide to have this be our first collaboration after the pandemic?
So I was digging through some old emails because Joseph and I were unsure, when did we first start talking about The Armed Man? And it was actually back in early 2017. Yeah. I found an email
it was a while ago.
That I sent to you, and it said something to the effect of, I'm really stuck on this piece of music. And so there's a thread that goes on from there, and just going back and forth. And I think we were talking about performing it within those next few years, and then 2020 came, and the pandemic, and all the while we were still talking about it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And you were making a point that I think you need to expound on about how the pandemic kind of is calling for us to perform this.
Right, yeah. We had talked about it, originally pairing it with a piece by Ralph Vaughan Williams, the Dona Nobis Pacem. Thought that would be a nice combination, British pieces, anti-war, all that stuff. That was great. But, we had, that one didn't quite work out, and we went to, it was Psalms. We did a program of Psalms. That was the one we couldn't remember. And so we did some other things that seemed to be a better fit for the orchestra and the choir at that time. And then we had our hiatus. And then, getting back, people have been hesitant to go to concerts. People have been hesitant to go out. A lot of people are feeling really beat up, either physically or emotionally from the last couple of years. And so when Jeremy and I were talking, maybe 6 months or a year ago, okay, well, I think maybe we can try to get back together. What should we do? We threw around a couple other things, and then I thought The Armed Man, and I realized, it just came to me, and no, this is the one we've got to do, right? This is because of the situation in Ukraine, because of the pandemic, because of all the horrible stuff that's been going on the last couple of years. We're sort of coming out of it, I'd like to think, and I think it was really important to have the catharsis, really, of this kind of piece to bring us back together.
Yeah.
Well, this is a very emotional piece of music, both to perform and to listen to. So what would you two like the audience to take away from our performance?
I would hope that our audience comes away with not an understanding, but an appreciation of peace. Right? I mean, there's a lot of this is about how awful war is. Well, yeah, and it puts our nose right in it. But what we'd like people to come away with is how beautiful and valuable peace is.
Better is peace
than always war. Absolutely.
And thinking about when this piece particularly or specifically was commissioned in the late 90s, the hope was that this would be a reflection on war and then a look forward to the new millennium. Here comes the year 2000. I bet there won't be any wars anymore. Well, here we are almost 25 years later, and we know that that is absolutely not the case.
So we just finished an all-day rehearsal together, and we did dig deep down into the horrors of war, but tell us a bit about how the piece finishes up.
So the Armed Man does finish with hope, because if we don't finish with hope, then what do we have? And so the final movement, better is peace than always war. And it takes that main theme, do 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 do, which is minor, and it inserts it a major in the third. Do 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 do. Better is peace than always war. And so we utilize that, and then we go into Ring Out Wild Bells. And I cannot remember when this poem is from, but the text is so perfect in the way Jenkins has set Ring Out Wild Bells. It's not typically a poem that you hear in the middle of March, because it's typically recited, or if it's a musical setting, it's sung around New Year's. So you hear references to snow. And this was, the old tradition was, this year is done, let's forget about whatever happened this last year, and let's move forward with hope. And then it ends with the Welsh prayer.
The little chorale, which is fantastic. You may know that there's a strong tradition of choral singing in Wales, which is where Jenkins is from. And he uses a lot of traditional Welsh type singing in this final chorale, which is fantastic, really. We've gone through all this stuff, marches and streaming and mass and all this, and then we get to a very simple 4-part chorale, just the choir by themselves, singing, trust the Lord in peace, and it's a very beautiful, effective thing.
God will wipe away all tears and sadness and sorrow are no more.
Yeah, as you were saying that, I was thinking, in the old British calendar, the new year started in March. So that's the way they did it several hundred years ago.
Well, then this is very timely.
Well, of course it's timely.
The rebirth of the world.
Well, it is. It really is. And of course it's a rebirth of culture in a sense, people getting out and reconnecting. So there's all that angle to it. I think it's really important that to reiterate that we don't get stuck in the violence and the nastiness. We confront it. We look at as square in the face as we can in this kind of situation, but then we make a conscious choice to move on, and we make a conscious choice to move on and go in peace.
It is satisfying as a singer to, after all of that intensity in the middle, to finish off with this kind of peaceful renewal. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for taking the time to share this with us. We hope we'll see you all at our concert at St. Mark's in Seattle on March 12th.